My name is Norik Shikata, Deputy Cabinet Secretary for Public Relations at the Prime Minister's Office. Let me just introduce you a couple of points Chief Cabinet Secretary Edano mentioned this morning and this afternoon at his press conference. In the morning, there was reference to the issue of discharging the water with a lower level of radiation materials from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the sea. And on this issue, he made a comment that this was an unavoidable measure in order to prevent the high level of radioactive water from leaking into the sea. But he feels he regrets very much for the measure that we had to take. At the present time, we are preparing for taking preventive measures against the spread of the released radioactive water into the sea. At the same time, we will continue to dispose of the highly contaminated water at the nuclear power plant carefully. And he mentioned that at some point near the ocean, by making use of something like a fence, we intend to prevent spreading that water. And what kind of measure is deemed the most effective at an early juncture is being explored. So we are trying to prevent the spread of the released radioactive water into the sea, and the measures are being explored. Next, in the afternoon, he made an announcement that on the issue of radioactive iodine of marine products. The current list of indicator concerning food and drinks intake regulations do not include the standard values for marine products. And based on the Nuclear Disaster Response Headquarters asked the Nuclear Safety Commission on this issue, whether it is appropriate to use the standard values, provisional standard values used for food items, except drinking water, milk, and dairy products, and this is something about the basically vegetables. Whether the provisional standard values used for vegetables could be applied for marine products, and the Nuclear Safety Commission came up with advice that as a provisional measure, this could be the case. And based on this advice from a Nuclear Safety Commission, Nuclear Disaster Response Headquarters instructed Minister of Health and Welfare to apply the values applied for vegetables to marine products. And MHLW will take measures immediately. So these are the salient points coming from the Chief Cabinet Secretary Edano's press conference, and I'd like to ask my colleagues next from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Matsunaga, Assistant Press Secretary, to go next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shikata. Good evening. I'd like to explain about some information with respect to foreign assistance. First, additional information concerning assistance of U.S. forces. U.S. Marine dispatches about 140 personnel of its Chemical Biological Incident Response Force, and about 100 personnel of the Chemical Biological Incident Response Force arrived in Yokota Air Base by yesterday. I also would like to mention about yesterday's Defense Minister Kitazawa's visit to U.S. aircraft carrier Ronald Reagan. He expressed his gratitude for the U.S. forces' cooperation in response to the great earthquake. On board the U.S. aircraft carrier, Minister also conveyed Prime Minister Kan's message. Next, I'd like to touch upon relief money from the African Diplomatic Corps. Last Wednesday, State Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Takahashi, received a courtesy call of 10 African ambassadors representing the African Diplomatic Corps. The acting dean of the African Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador Kovaback of Zimbabwe, and other participating ambassadors of African countries offered their condolences for the damage caused by the Great East Japan earthquake and expressed the solidarity of African countries with Japan. The acting dean of the Diplomatic Corps then stated that the African Diplomatic Corps had decided to cancel the African Day events, which had been scheduled in May this year, and instead to donate the relevant budget for the events, equivalent of 1.2 million yen for those affected by the disaster. Mr. Takahashi expressed his deep appreciation for the support and the message of sympathy and encouragement from African countries. Next, I'd like to update you about the number of embassies in Tokyo temporarily closed. In response to a question previously, I explained the number of embassies in Tokyo which are temporarily closed. On the previous occasion, I mentioned that 14 embassies in Tokyo are temporarily closed. As of 4 p.m. today, 12 embassies are still temporarily closed. Embassies of Switzerland and Senegal reopened today. At this point in time, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matsunaga. Then I'd like to ask Mr. Watanabe, Senior Deputy Director General of MEXT, to go next.
それでは私の
Thank you. I would like to explain the documentation issued by MEXT. Excuse me.
Speak in Japanese. Please prepare equipments. MX のです。
So, I'd like to explain the document issued or prepared by MEXT. I believe you have on hand the documentation prepared by MEXT. As usual, MEXT continues the environmental radioactivity monitoring, and the updated data is indicated in the document. I'd like to point out three things. First of all, page 10. Please turn to page 10. Page 10. I'm sorry, this is only in Japanese, and by tomorrow, I believe the English version of this documentation will be available. I'm sorry, we did not have the time to make the translation, so we will show you just the Japanese today. But this is the result of monitoring in Iitate village, which is located 30 kilometers northwest from the nuclear power plant. For as far as Iitate village is concerned, the radiation dose readings were relatively higher than the other regions. So Fukushima Prefecture conducted very detailed monitoring with many samples and also measured the spatial radiation dose rate at many locations, and we have aggregated the results here. So the content is spatial radiation dose rate as well as the radioactivity concentration in the soil and the radioactivity concentration of airborne dust. Compared to other locations, the number of samples are much larger so that we could grasp the overall situation in Iitate village. And another point I would like to raise is on page 17. That is the result of ocean monitoring, sea area monitoring. And the page 17 data is as of the 3rd of April, that is the day before yesterday. Sampled data readings as of the day before yesterday, or April 3rd, and the resulting evaluation. The sampled locations are shown on page 18 in a nautical map, about 30 kilometers off of the Fukushima Daiichi reactor. Also, two locations along the southern coast, along the coast to the south of the nuclear power plant. And on page 21, there is a series of graphs of sampling data over a period of time, time-wise readings. And the samplings are taken on every other day, the one day of all of the odd numbers monitoring posts, and the next day all of the even numbered monitoring posts. Of course, there are some areas where the readings have increased, but most have come down. Also, number 10 is closest to the land, and on March 30th, there was relatively high reading of iodine, but on April 3rd, that level has dropped to less than half of that maximum figure. So we would like to closely monitor the trends going forward. As for readings of the sea area, pages 22 and 23 indicate that from today, MEXT will enhance the sea area monitoring. As of today, and I think the content is as written on page 22. One is that we will install 5 monitoring buoys. The sampling points and the specific locations are shown on page 23. So please refer to that document. And in the sampled areas, there are automatic elevator floating buoys, 5 automatic elevator floating buoys. And these buoys will automatically sample the seawater temperature as well as the salinity levels and the current direction, flow, and velocity, such water mass property in these 5 locations. And by using this, we will be able to take some basic data on the dispersion of radioactive materials, the buoys themselves cannot measure radionuclides, but by measuring the temperature of the seawater and the current direction, we believe that this will be very useful in our future analysis. Secondly, we have added or increased the number of sampling points. Please refer to page 23. If you could look at this chart, you will see that up to now, we've taken samplings of a point 30 kilometers off of the coast from the Fukushima Daiichi and 2 points to the south. But from today, we added 2 other sampling points to the north that is indicated on the map as A and B. And we want to continue the sampling around the adjacent seas in a concentric circle. Now, sea area 2-1 is wrong. This top number here should be sea area 1-1 and not 2-1. The bottom one is sea area 2-1. So we started the monitoring today, so the results should be coming out maybe the day after tomorrow or the day after that. So I wanted to report to you that we did strengthen our sea area monitoring. That is my key message today. Thank you.
それでは続きまして原子力安全委員会から
Now, Nuclear Safety Commission will now give us a daily report on the evaluation of the environment radiation monitoring results. Today, I would like to explain to you about the results between 13 on April 3rd, 2011 to 13:00 on April 4th, which was announced by MEXT. This is further away from the 20 kilometers, which is the evacuation area of the Fukushima #1 power plant. Generally speaking, there is no major change from the values that we saw yesterday. The first is a spatial radiation dose rate. It is in some places somewhat higher than normal, but it is not the dose that would impact the health of the people. Next is the radioactivity in air. Compared to the data of the previous day, there is some increase. And as a result, for cesium, it is below the limit of concentration. However, for iodine, it is somewhat over the concentration limit. As for the aviation monitoring, there has not been any new data obtained. For the environmental sample, for the seawater, there was no new information provided. It is not that it was not monitored, but information was not compiled by the deadline. Therefore, we would provide you with the evaluation results when we report to you these numbers tomorrow. Fifth is the environmental radioactivity level survey by prefecture. As for the drinking or tap water, iodine 131 and the radioactive cesium, there is somewhat of the decline of the concentration, and both of these values are below the limit. So this concludes my report.
Of Nisa to go next.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to update the status of Fukushima Daiichi site. Regarding Unit 1, the parameters of the reactor of the Unit 1 are relatively stable. We're still transferring water from the hot well to the condensate storage tank. This is the preparation for pumping up and storing the stagnant water in the turbine building into the hot well. Regarding Unit 2, the parameters of the reactor of the Unit 2 are also relatively stable. Regarding stagnant water, first of all, we are transferring the water from the hot well to the condensate storage tank as a preparatory work for pumping up and storing the stagnant water in the hot well. To prevent highly radiated water spilling from the crack on the outside wall of the pit where electricity cables are stored, we are now searching the route of the water, which probably comes from the Unit 2. We are now tracing we poured some tracer to the ground this time, not to the pit or the vertical part of the trench. Rather, we put the tracer in the ground under the pit. And we found the tracer came from the crack, and we found that there is a certain route below the pit, below the bottom of the pit, where certain layers of stones or pebbles are there. So we are now injecting water glass to fill the room where water, the radiated water flows. At the same time, as I reported yesterday, we allowed TEPCO to release the 10,000 tons of slightly radiated water from the radioactive waste disposal system to the sea, so that we can find a space where we store the highly radiated water in the turbine building and the trenches of Unit 2. Since the water is flowing into the sea, highly radiated water is flowing into the sea, we found this action urgent and inevitable. According to TEPCO's report, which was published today, nuclide analysis regarding areas surrounding highly radiated water spilling from the crack on the wall outside of the pit shows a very high level of radioactivity, including those of iodine 131 and cesium 134 and 137. We will execute our plan to enclose the area with silt fence as soon as possible, and with some other measures in the near future. And we also brought in the kind of sandbag to the place where the water may flow into the outside of the intake area. Regarding Unit 3, the parameters of the reactor of the Unit 3 are relatively stable. Regarding spent fuel pool of Unit 3, yesterday we threw pure water to the spent fuel pool. We'll transfer the water in the hot well to the condensate storage tank to prepare for pumping up the stagnant water to the hot well. Regarding Unit 4, we are throwing, and we finished very recently the throwing of water to the spent fuel pool of the Unit 4. We found actually yesterday's operation to throw the pure water into the spent fuel pool of this unit was not successful. Therefore, we are using a concrete pumping machine with a camera on top. Regarding Unit 5 and 6, yesterday, as I reported last night, we found that underground water came into the building of the Unit 6. That may endanger the important part of those units 5 and 6, which are connected, and we think that the water may harm the most important function of cooling the reactor. So we allowed TEPCO to release this slightly radiated water, actually underground water, into the sea. The volume of underground water is 1,000 tons for the Unit 5 and 500 tons for the Unit 6. That's all for my report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nishiyama. Now I'd like to open the floor for questions. When you have a question, please identify yourself with your name and affiliation.
Süddeutsche Zeitung, Christoph Neidert, Minami-Deutsche Sinmun. Mr. Nishiyama and Mr. Shinano, yesterday you explained the responsibilities of your respective institutions, and this was mostly control and surveying TEPCO. Mr. Nishiyama, you are surveying NISA as well. Now, considering that Fukushima 1 was designed for 5.4 meters tsunami, and that there were several warnings in the diet, in commissions of the diet, and there was a lawsuit going on in Fukushima against the plant to make the plant more safe. And considering that Onegawa was designed for 9.1 meter tsunami and didn't suffer heavy damage, do you think your institutions bear some responsibility for this whole nuclear catastrophe? Because obviously you didn't force TEPCO to meet necessary standards as well. We know that there were tsunamis even higher than the tsunami this time in 1933 and in 1896 and in 1500. And this was discussed in the Earthquake Commission of the Diet. Thank you.
南ドイツ新聞ですけれども、西山さんと信濃さんから昨日、それぞれの機関の責任範囲についてご説明いただきました。で、主として安全保安院は東電を監督し、そして信濃さんの場合はさらに原子力安全保安院の監督をするというお立場であるということを伺いました。福島第一原発の設計上では5メーター5.4です5メーター強の5.5メーター強の津波に対応できるようにと設計されておりますが、国会の委員会において何回かにわたり警告が発せられており、さらに福島ではこの原発に対してより安全性を高めてほしいということで訴訟も係争中であったと。さらには女川原発は設計上 9.1 メーターの津波への対応ができるように設計されていて、結果女川原発は今回大きな被害を受けていません。こういったことに鑑み両機関、すなわち安全保安院並びに原子力安全委員会は今回のこの原子力の大災害全体に対してある程度の責任があるとお考えでしょうか。すなわち東電に対して必要な基準を満たすよう強制しなかったということで責任の一端があるとお考えでしょうか。実際に今回よりも大きな津波、例えば1933年、1896年、1500年とに今回よりもより大きな津波が実際に起こったということは皆さんご存知のことだと思いますし、実際に国会の 地震委員会、地震対策委員会でもそのことは議論になっておりましたので。
まずこの地震とか津波については原子力安全委員会が定める指針に基づいて原子力安全保安院は事業者の、プラントがそれにかなったものであるかどうか、適合したものであるかどうかを審査する立場にあります。
First of all, regarding earthquakes and tsunami, the Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency is in the position of inspecting whether or not the nuclear power generation plant of the operator comply with the guidelines that has been provided by the Nuclear Safety Commission.
現在は2000年代に入って作られた指針に基づいてその過去に建てられたプラントもバックチェックというのをやっている段階にあります。
And currently we are at the stage of back checking plants, nuclear power plants that have been constructed in the past based on the guidelines that have been developed after entering into 2000.
それで津波についてはこれから評価をする段階でまず地震の揺れに対する強さを評価した上でこれはある程度できましたけれども、これから津波について評価をするという段階で今回の大津波に襲われてしまったわけです。
And regarding the tsunami, we were precisely at the stage of going into evaluation against tsunamis. We've started with checking the resilience or strength of the nuclear power plants vis-a-vis the oscillation from the earthquake. And we have more or less completed checking the strength or resilience of the nuclear power plants against earthquakes. And we were about to go into a double checking for tsunami when we suffered this very huge disaster.
それでこれまでの地震についても今回はまだやり始めて、やり終えてませんでしたけれども、津波の評価においても過去の最新の知見を入れた評価をしてきたつもりでありますけれども、結果的にいずれにしてもこういう形になったということについてはその我々のやり方にその過去のことを調べることやそれに対応する方法も含めてよくこの事態が落ち着いた後で振り返ってみないといけないと思います。
And so far, regarding earthquakes, 地震に関して今回やり終えていない。For earthquakes, as I mentioned previously, we have more or less completed the back checking. But for the evaluation of the tsunami, we believe we have been undertaking an evaluation including and reflecting the most updated findings and knowledge that we have. But in any event, considering what has happened this time, after everything is settled and stabilized, we would have to review our approach, including checking what had happened in the past and also checking on the means that we have come up with to deal with issues as they come up.
福島の原発に関するその再評価の経緯というのは、今同僚の西山審議官からご説明した通りです。
My colleague, Mr. Nishimura, has just explained about the history of our work in re-evaluating the nuclear power station at Fukushima.
昨日もご説明した通り、原子力安全委員会はその安全審査の基本になる指針、ガイドラインを作っておりますけれども、これは新しい知見を踏まえてどんどん見直しを行っておりました。そういう意味で原子力安全委員会としてはできる限りのことはしてきたつもりであります。
And as I have explained yesterday, the Nuclear Safety Commission develops guidelines based on safety inspections. And we have been reviewing these guidelines based on the most updated knowledge and findings that we have. And I believe that the Nuclear Safety Commission has been doing everything within its power so far.
原子力安全委員会のマダラメ委員長が先日国会で、答弁をしておりますので、そのフレーズをいくつかご紹介したいと思います。
マダラメ。Chairman Madalame of the Nuclear Safety Commission has responded to a number of questions in the Japanese Diet, that is the Parliament, which I would like to describe to you.
一つは今回の地震について、想定を超えたものであった。その想定については世界的な見直しがなされなければならないと考えていると。
First of all, the chairman of the Nuclear Safety Commission, in his response to a question in the Diet, responded that the earthquake that we encountered this time was beyond what we had expected, and I believe that we need to have a global review of the levels that are expected.
さらに原子力に関わってきた者の一人として個人的にはということですが、今回起こったことについて謝罪をしたいという気持ちであると、このように答弁をしております。
And Chairman Matalame went on to further say that as one involved in nuclear energy, personally speaking, his feeling is that he wishes to apologize for what has happened this time.
Next question.
Yeah, sorry, Panoramic News. Just a quick question for Mr. Nishiyama. I understand that the story was that the nuclear plants shut off when the earthquake, automatically when the earthquake took place. And then the cooling system starts, and that's supposed to be generated by the outside electric. And then the tsunami came and destroyed these equipment that are supposed to generate the electricity for the cooling. So can you give us some timeline about this? Like how long it usually takes for the emergency generators to work and to cool the system? And according to your records, how many minutes was the difference? I mean, after how many minutes the tsunami hit? After the earthquakes, when did the tsunami hit in terms of time? Thank you.
パンオリエントニュースのものですけれども、西山審議官に短い質問があります。私の理解するところでは、地震が起こった際に原発は自動停止したと。そしてその後、冷却システムが作動を開始し、それは外の外部の電源によって発電機が動くはずであったと。しかしその後津波が来て、そして冷却のために必要な発電機などの機械類を破壊してしまったというお話でしたけれども、大体 通常を、冷却に使われている非常電源が動き出すまでに、通常はどのぐらいの時間、冷却用の非常電源が動き始めるまでにどのぐらいの時間が通常はかかるものなんでしょうか。そして今回の記録によると、だいたい地震が起こってから津波が来るまで何分ぐらいあったんでしょうか。
まず今回地震が起こってから非常用の電源が働くのはこれはすぐ働きました。その上で1時間ぐらい後に津波が来ました。
After the earthquake this time, the emergency power generator started moving right away after the earthquake came. And it was about 1 hour later that the tsunami came.
それでその津波が来たときにその非常用の電源が動かなくなってしまって、我々の計算では動かなくなってから5時間から7時間経つと、炉心が損傷するというふうに考えています。
And when the tsunami came, the emergency power generator stopped moving. And according to our calculation, it takes between 5 to 7 hours for the for the reactor core to start to incur damage.
少し補足しますと、今、津波によってダメになっていたもので重要なものはディーゼル発電機と、それから外部の電源を取り入れるそのシステムと、それから冷却海水ポンプですね。
And if I may supplement, the main important equipment that became dysfunctional as a result of the tsunami include the diesel power generator, the system for bringing in outside power source, and the seawater pump.
Hello, Kenneth Cuquier from The Economist. I've got a family of questions. There's 8 of them altogether. Let me start with the first and simplest, which is, of the roughly 10,000 tons of radiated water that are going into the sea, that you've permitted TEPCO to go into the sea, what is the radiation level? Is it 100 times the legal limit? What is the figure that you have?
エコノミストのものですけれども、私関連質問がいくつかありまして、全部で一連の関連質問が8つありまして、まず最初の最も単純な質問から始めますと、東電に海への排出を許可したおよそ1万トンの放射能を帯びた水の放射能レベルはどのぐらいなんでしょうか。法定基準の10倍とかそういうレベルなんでしょうか。
大体これは何の限度だ。これは周辺監視区域の水だろうか海水だろうか飲むこと前提ですね。周辺監視区域放射線を管理するために設定されているエリアにおいて、このエリアの外、普通の場所って一般のその放射線を管理していないその普通の場所において、放射性物質の濃度の限度とされているものの、大体100倍ぐらいの値です。
Roughly speaking, the level of radiation would be approximately 100 times the concentration limit of radioactive material in areas which are outside the area in which the radiation level is controlled.
Okay.
一応紙が配られてますから、この、資料を見てください。
And we have distributed a document that describes precisely the point that you have raised in your question. So can you please refer to the press release that we have distributed?
Thank you. It may be answered, the second question might be answered in that as well, which is Unit 5 and Unit 6, where you're dumping 1,000 tons and 500 tons of radioactive contaminated water. What is the level there?
そうしますと、私の次の質問、もしかしたらその紙の中に答えがあるのかもしれませんけれども、第5号機と6号機、それぞれ放射能を帯びた水を1000トンと500トン、それぞれ海に放出しておりますけれども、こちらの水の放射能レベルはどのぐらいなんでしょうか。
今と同じ考え方で、だいたい高いところで50倍ぐらいです。
From the same perspective as I mentioned earlier, that is, for the areas that are outside the radioactivity management or monitoring area, the highest level would be around 50 times the concentration limit.
Great, thank you.
Could
In
you
terms-
limit your question so that others could ask questions? Yes, so maybe you could take another round, but please go ahead on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me defer questions on that, and I'll come back to it if I need to. Let me go into the area of the question of marine life then. Fish don't obey areas, they swim everywhere. Can you please tell me the type of fish and maybe the quantity of fish that generally, and other marine life, that generally pass through Fukushima and that area where the contamination is taking place, and then where they go to, and roughly the time it takes for them to go to certain areas? So, for example, if you wanted to, for safety reasons, prevent fishing, you obviously wouldn't just prevent fishing today in Fukushima, you would prevent fishing maybe in 3 weeks in Fukuoka. I'm not a marine biologist, but I'm sure that the government of Japan is thinking about these issues for public safety grounds. Please, can you inform me? If you can't, can you commit to returning tomorrow night and informing me?
では今の関連の質問は後に回して、もし必要になればまた後で別途伺いますけれども、次に海洋生物の話に行きたいと思います。魚介類、魚は別にその特定の地域にとどまるわけではなく、どこにでも泳いでいくので、だいたい魚およびその他の海洋生物で、この福島の沖合、あるいは現在汚染水が流れ出ているあたりを通過する魚およびその他海洋生物の種類と量を教えていただきたいのと、福島およびこの汚染水が流れ出ている海域を通過した後、この海洋生物たちはどこに泳いでいくんでしょうか。で、その次の場所に行くのにはどのぐらい時間がかかるんでしょうか。例を挙げますと、安全性の観点から漁業を自粛するというようなことがあった場合に、別に福島沖合で今日 漁業を自粛するというばかりではないんだと思うんです。ですから私は海洋生物学者でないのではっきりは分かりませんけれども、例えばその3週間後に福岡における漁業を場合によっては自粛する必要があるのかもしれません、その流れによっては。ですから日本政府は国民あり公衆の安全のためにそういったことをお考えになっておられるんでしょうか。もし今日はっきりわからないということであれば、明日の夜までに調べていただいて教えていただきたいと思うんですが。
Since we don't have an official from MHLW and Ministry of Agriculture and Fishery, I would probably defer to their experts' response hopefully tomorrow evening. But let me just give you some of the information or perspectives from myself. First, out of various samplings, I guess there are 8 kinds of fish being monitored, and there was one sample which is young loans, or that's a kind of sand eel, right? That exceeded the level that I referred to at the outset. I understand the figure obtained was 4,080 becquerel per kilogram, and provisional standard value that was decided today is 2,000. So this particular fish, the fishing off the coast of Ibaragi, which is it's a northern Ibaragi, which is close to Fukushima. The fishing activities have been suspended. And as you point out, there are issues regarding how fish navigate and swim around. And our understanding is that MAF, Ministry of Agriculture, Fishery, is of the view that they will try to grasp where those fishing vessels are carrying out fishing activities and where their ports are. And so MAF is trying really hard to monitor fishing activities and harvest so that those fish that exceed the limits will never be distributed in the market. So since we have decided the provisional standard values, if they exceed them, there is a possibility that those distribution of particular fish will be suspended. Naturally, in relation to fish swimming around, it is necessary to monitor in a wider area. We understand that, and also we are aware of the need to monitor various kinds of fish, and that's exactly that which is being carried out. And on this issue, both Minister of Agriculture, Fishery, and Forestry and Fishery, and MHLW, they are collaborating to prevent the contaminated fish from being distributed in the market.
それは日本語にします。いいですかね。
はい、いいです。
Does everyone understand English?
Okay, Chris. Okay, Mr. Rahman.
My name is Habib Rahman, Muslim World magazine from Pakistan. We have been hearing from various media criticism about TEPCO, about this incident for last about 3 weeks. I was really shocked. Pakistan, my country, also has atomic installations, as you know. Day before yesterday, I had a chance to talk with one of friends in Pakistan, and I was really shocked. He, as Mr. Nishiyama mentioned, that we were not expecting this earthquake and tsunami of 9 something. In ordinary buildings, I have, during the drills, told by the engineers that some buildings in Tokyo can face an earthquake much higher than 9. Maybe the whole building can move, but it cannot go down. So my question is why we fail to expect an earthquake and tsunami of a level which has in the past also happened so many times, maybe serious than this one. So this building and this installation, I think we are saving faces of each other, and we are not giving consideration what happened if something worse than this happened, and why we were not prepared to make this such a dangerous installation, which is being criticized by a lot of people in the world. And even then, we are installing it for the benefit of the human being and not taking into account much higher level of damage which such constructions can face at any time of the history. I think we, as we use the word, we are evaluating, we are reviewing, and we are checking and making back-checking and so many things. It should have been done before we construct these kind of installations.
パキスタンの新聞のものですけれども、いろいろなマスコミ関係者から今回の事象、もう起こってから3週間になりますけれども、この事象に関して、東電に対する批判の声が聞かれます。で、私、本当に衝撃を受けたのは、我が国もご存知のように原発がありまして、一昨日、パキスタンの友人と話す機会があって、本当にショックを受けたんですけれども、西山審議官は、その旧何がしかとおっしゃってます、おそらくこの地震の規模の方だと思うんですけれども、この旧何がしかの地震とか津波は予想外であったとおっしゃいましたけれども、通常の建物でさえ、例えば東京にある建物の中には9以上の地震でも耐えられる、建物全体は移動するかもしれないけれども崩れることはないという建物さえある中で、私の質問は、なぜ過去にも場合によっては今回よりももっと大きな深刻な災害が過去にも数多く起こったという歴史があるにもかかわらず、今回の規模の地震とか津波をどうして想定することができなかったのでしょうか。で、今回が起こったこと、あるいはそれよりもさらに ひどいことだって、起こりうる中で、なぜ、今まで少なくとも起こったような規模のより大きな規模のものを考慮に入れることなく、単にメリットだけを考えて、なぜこの建物設備などを建設したんでしょうか。先ほど評価をし、チェックをし、バックチェックをしとおっしゃいましたけれども、なぜそういった評価とかバックチェックとかチェックをこの原発を建てる前にすべき、チェックは原発を建てる前にすべきだったんじゃないんでしょうか。
今回地震と津波があって、で地震の方についてはこれまでの経験に基づいて、バックチェックも行い十分な強さを持たせているというふうに考えておりまして、で日本の原子力発電所ではこれまで日本のビルディングと同じようにこの、地震によって、大きな被害を受けたということはほとんどありません。
We faced both the earthquake and tsunami this time, and based on our past experience, for the earthquake, we did all the back checking that was required, and the power plant had adequate strength to resist the earthquake. And Japanese nuclear power stations, like Japanese buildings, up to now have hardly experienced any damage from earthquakes.
それで津波については今回の津波はとにかくこれまでの歴史上、想像できる範囲をはるかに超えた大きさのものでしたからそれも予測できなかったというのは非常に、残念なことで、何かそういうものを予測するこれからの方法があればぜひ考えたいというふうには思いますけれども、このこと自体はなんて言いますか、我々のその予測能力を超えていたということになると思います。
For the tsunami, however, the tsunami that we experienced this time was far larger than anything that we could imagine from past experience in history. And unfortunately, it was not something that we could have predicted. If there is any way in which we can predict these events, we would like to consider, but the tsunami this time was far beyond what we could have predicted.
Süddeutsche Zeitung. I just want to follow up on 3 points. First, on what you just said, Mr. Nishiyama. There is work done by Mr. Minoru Koji saying that in 1500, the tsunami reached 4 kilometers behind the coastline in the Sendai area, which is not far from Fukushima. Mr. Shinano said the guidelines were revised. Were the guidelines for tsunamis revised when you revised the guidelines? Second question, Mr. Nishiyama just said on my colleague's question that 5 to 7 hours after the cooling stops, the reactor starts to be damaged. Does that mean that Friday at midnight on the 11th, you would already have known that the reactors have been damaged, so that you would have had to declare a nuclear emergency? And the third question, Mr. Nishiyama, you said that water from under that pit is leaking out into the sea. Does that mean the water table is contaminated? Thank you.
南ドイツ 新聞のものですけれども、今関連質問を3点、伺いたいと思います。まず、今、西山審議官がお答えになった点ですけれども、幸治実さんの研究では、1500年に仙台で、沿岸部から4キロ内陸まで津波が到達したという研究結果が発表されております。で、仙台というと福島からそれほど遠くありません。それと信濃さんが先ほど指針を見直しているとおっしゃいましたけれども、津波に関する指針を一番最近見直したのはいつでしょうか。これが第一の質問。2番目の質問は、先ほどもう一人の方の質問に対して、西山審議官は、冷却システムが停止してからおよそ5時間から7時間ぐらい経った後に、炉心の損傷が始まるとおっしゃいました。そうしますと、もう金曜日、11日金曜日の深夜には、炉心に損傷が起こるということが分かっていたのでしょうか。炉心に損傷が起こり、そして原子力緊急事態を発令しなきゃいけないということは、もう11日金曜日の深夜の時点で分かっていたということでしょうか。3番目の質問は、先ほどピットの下の水が海に流れ出しているとおっしゃいましたけれども、そうしますと、ウォーターテーブルというが汚染されているという意味なんでしょうか。
まず指針の見直しについてですが、津波に関する指針は2006年が一番新しい改定になっています。
Let me respond to the question about the revision of the guidelines. The guidelines for tsunami has most recently been revised in 2006.
これはその中では津波について次のように書いてあります。
And in that most recent revision, the guidelines refer to tsunami as follows.
施設の共用期間中、使っている間ですね、に極めて稀ではあるけれども発生する可能性があると想定されることが適切な津波によっても施設の安全機能が重大な影響を受ける恐れがないこと、こういう条件を挙げております。
ちょっといただけますか。In the guidelines that has been most recently revised, it provides that consideration should be given to the fact that there is no risk of any serious damage to the safety function of the facility, even in case of a tsunami. Even in the case of a tsunami, which can appropriately be expected, that it would be very rare that such a tsunami would occur while the facility is in use. Did that make sense? Want me to repeat that again? Was that comprehensible?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. You do a good job.
それでまず1号機について一番早く難しい事態が訪れた1号機について言いますと、11日の15時42分にこの交流電源 AC パワーのトータルロスという事態になりまして、それから11日の16時36分にこのエマージェンシーコアクーリングシステムに 水を入れることができなくなったということで、それぞれ法律に基づくその緊急事態が宣言されております。報告されていますということ
。First of all, for unit number 1, which faced a difficult situation, first among the 4 units, on the 11th at 1542, there was a total loss of AC power. And also on the same day, on the 11th, at 1636, that is 4:36 in the afternoon, we were unable to inject water into the emergency core cooling system. And as a result, an emergency situation was reported in accordance to the relevant law.
でその後12日の1時20分に、ベントをすることになって、原子炉圧力容器の、これは格納容器か、格納容器の圧力が異常に上がったという事態になりました。
And subsequently, on the 12th at 1:20, that is a little bit past midnight, at 1:20 in the morning, it was decided to vent because the pressure in the containment vessel was increasing abnormally.
以上はお配りした資料に書いております。それからウォーターテーブルについては今我々が思っているのは2号機からこのピットのところまでの間に石などの地層がありますので、その部分が水を伝える役割を果たしているのではないかと思っていまして、地下水全般というような意味であればそこまで広がっているというふうに今は考えていません。
In any event, what I have been describing to you is shown in detail in the document that we have distributed to you in this document. And in response to your question about the water table, we believe that the soil layer filled with pebbles and small stones, which is found between unit number 2 and the pit, is we consider is probably playing the role of guiding the water to the pit and into the sea. But we do not believe that it is spreading as far as the underground water.
We've got to close now, but last question. One question will go to Ken Kuke.
It's on that last question in terms of the water table. Have you tested the water table, yes or no? Do you have the findings of what the water table is? If so, will you disclose it? And if not, and why haven't you already? If you haven't tested the water table, when will you test the water table? What are you waiting for?
そうしまして最後の質問ということでしたら、ウォーターテーブルのことでもうすでにテストしたんでしょうか。それ、もうテストしたのかどうか、そしてテストしたのであればウォーターテーブルに関してどういった結果が出たのか、どういったなんていうか知見が出たのかで、その結果をまだ公表してないとすれば、なぜ公表していないのかで、もしまだテストをしてないというのであればいつ頃テストをするのか、そして何を待っていらっしゃるんでしょうか。テストするまでのまだテストしてないとすれば何を待っているんでしょうか。
まず地下水についてももうすでにサンプルは取っていて各種の分析をしておりますけれども、それをどこで発表したかちょっと私も 記憶がはっきりしませんけれども、またその結果もすでに示してあるか、もし示してなければお示ししたいと思います。
We have already taken samples of underground water and have done a variety of different analyses. And I don't remember where that was disclosed. I believe it has been already disclosed, but if not, we will disclose it.
Okay, we'd like to conclude today's briefing, and we'll hold another round of briefing tomorrow evening as well. Thank you very much for coming.